In Washington, D.C., a salary of $100,000 can feel either pretty comfortable or strangely tight at the same time. If you have ever wondered whether that six-figure paycheck would really stretch in the nation's capital, this video is for you. Stay with me, because in a few minutes you will see exactly where that money goes, line by line. Here is the game plan. First, why people are still moving to DC right now. Then housing, utilities, transport, and insurance. After that, we dig into salaries, taxes, schools, safety, healthcare, and two real monthly budgets, one for a solo renter and one for a family of three. Along the way, I will give you small reality checks and simple money moves that can make a government paycheck feel a lot more powerful. And at the very end, I will share one rule of thumb that many DC locals quietly use to decide if a job offer is really worth it. So why DC and why now? This city is basically a giant ecosystem built around government, law, lobbying, associations, think tanks, consulting, and tech. Federal agencies, the Hill, big consulting firms, healthcare systems, and non-profits all stack up here, which is why the typical household income is already well into the six figures. That sounds great, but there is a catch, and you probably feel it already. When everyone around you earns a lot, prices adjust. So the real question is not just how much you make in DC, but how much you keep after rent, taxes, and all the sneaky little costs of living in a serious power city. Let us start with housing, because that is where most people get sticker shock. On average, rents across the district cite just under $2,500 a month, which already puts DC near the top for the entire country. If you are looking for a one-bedroom close to a metro stop in a solid neighborhood, seeing prices around $2,300 to $2,500 is totally normal. Need a three-bedroom so you can bring a partner, a kid, or a roommate into the picture. It is easy to see rents jump into the $3,700 to $4,000 range in many parts of town. Would you rent or try to buy here? That is the big decision for a lot of people sitting on government or consulting salaries. Recent national real estate data puts the typical home value inside Washington, D.C. around $580,000. And on some cost of living indexes, the average listing price for a single family place in the city lands closer to $1.1 million, especially in those postcard neighborhoods with row houses and tree-lined streets. That means your down payment alone can look like the price of a house in another state. How does that sound to you? Worth it for the location or just insane? Owning here does have one small silver lining. The district's effective property tax rate is around 0.56% of your assessed value, which is lower than many states. So on a $600,000 condo, you might see property taxes a little above $3,000 per year, instead of something crushing. But DC has another homeowner twist that people forget about: association fees. Condo and COP buildings here often charge homeowners association dues around $500 a month. And in amenity, heavy high-rises, that number can push higher. For investors, the math can still work because those high purchase prices are paired with strong rents. Many neighborhoods see gross rental yields in roughly the mid-single digits. But for you as a resident, the real question is simple. After the mortgage, taxes, and fees, are you still sleeping at night? Now let us talk about something less glamorous, but just as important: utilities and internet. Across DC, one major cost of living study found that housing and utilities together are the single biggest line in the average person's budget, with utilities alone easily adding a few $100s to your monthly costs. Electric bills here have been climbing, with recent estimates putting a typical monthly power bill in the mid-100s for many households. And total utilities, including gas, water, trash, and internet, often landing around $400 to $500 for a mid-sized apartment. High-speed internet from big providers usually falls in the ballpark of $60 to $80 a month for a solid cable or fiber plan, more if you want top-tier speeds for streaming and remote work. So if your one-bedroom rent is around $2,400, it is not crazy for housing plus utilities plus internet to sit near $2,800 or even $3,000 before you do anything else. Does that surprise you? Or is this about what you expected from DC? The next big lever is how you actually move around the city. One of the huge advantages of DC is the metro and bus system. You genuinely can live car-free here if you plan your location around a rail line. Unlimited metro and bus passes run from the low 70s to just over $200 a month, depending on how far you travel and what zones you cross, with many everyday commuters landing in the low $100 range. Average commute times hover around the mid-30-minute mark each way, which is not terrible for a major metro, but it does add up over the course of a week. If you keep a car in the city, the costs jump fast. Full coverage car insurance in DC averages around $1,680 per year, roughly $140 a month. And parking, whether in a garage or a spot behind your building, can easily add another $100 to $200. How would you do it here? Car, metro only, or some hybrid version where you drive on weekends and metro to work? Now let us connect all of this to the earnings side. DC is loaded with high-income households. The median household brings in a little over $109,000 a year, which is higher than any state-level median in the country. Across all workers, the average hourly wage in the metro is in the low 40s, which annualizes to a salary well north of $90,000. Federal workers stand out even more. Some recent data puts the average federal salary in the district in the mid-$130,000 range when you include higher-level analysts, managers, and specialists. So if you land a government job paying $100,000, you are not an outlier here. You are right in the mix. But how much of that do you actually take home? One national salary site ran the numbers and estimated that a single person earning $100,000 in Washington, D.C. ends up with roughly $77,000 a year after federal and district income taxes. That is around $6,400 a month hitting your checking account before retirement contributions, health premiums, and other payroll deductions. When you hear that, what is your first reaction? Feels like a lot, or not nearly enough. To make it more real, let us walk through two sample budgets using the numbers we have talked about so far. First, picture yourself as a single renter making around $100,000 a year. Your net monthly pay is roughly $6,400. You rent a modern one-bedroom near a metro stop for about $2,400. Add $450 for utilities and internet, $120 for a transit pass, and maybe $300 a month for your share of an employer health plan premium. You are now at roughly $3,270. Let us round it up and call it $3,300 to keep things simple. Groceries in DC are not cheap. Average data suggests food at home can easily run $600 a month for one person if you cook most meals, and more if you prefer organic or specialty options. Let us add another $600 for eating out, gyms, streaming, and fun, plus $300 for your phone, subscriptions, clothes, and random stuff that always pops up. Now you are sitting around $5,100 to $5,200 in monthly spending. That still leaves maybe $1,200 to $1,300 a month for savings, investing, travel, or extra debt payments. If you are disciplined, that is enough to build a real emergency fund, stack cash for a down payment, or max out a retirement account over time. But it also means that one or two big surprises, like a move, a breakup, or a medical bill, can put serious stress on your budget. Would that trade-off feel worth it to you for life in DC? Or would you rather earn a bit less in a cheaper city and buy more peace of mind? Now let us zoom out to a family of 3 renting in DC. Maybe one partner works a government job around $100,000 and the other brings in some income through part-time work or remote freelancing. Let us say together you clear close to $9,000 a month after taxes. That sounds strong, but watch how fast it can go. A 3-bedroom rental in a family-friendly neighborhood can easily sit near $3,800 to $4,000 a month. And $500 for utilities and internet, plus at least $200 a month for either a pair of transit passes or gas and parking for 1 car. Groceries for 2 adults and 1 child can easily climb toward $1,200 a month, more if you buy lots of fresh produce or special diet items. If you have daycare or preschool in the mix, DC is one of the most expensive places in the country, with typical center-based care often well above $1,300 per child each month. Sophie Healthcare is another big chunk. Average annual health spending per person in DC is estimated above $13,000, so even with good insurance, your premiums and out-of-pocket costs can easily land in the many hundreds per month for a family. When you sum all of that up, a $9,000 monthly take-home for a family of 3 can drop to maybe $1,500 or $2,000 left over for savings and extras if you are careful. That is not poverty by any stretch, but it is also not the fantasy of being rich just because your household income starts with a 1 and a 5. So what do you actually get in return for those high costs? On the school side, DC is complicated but improving. Citywide test scores are still mixed, yet recent data shows steady progress, with roughly a third of students now meeting or exceeding expectations in reading and about a quarter in math. Many families lean hard on the charter school system, which several studies have found can outperform traditional public schools in the district, especially in reading and math growth. On top of that, the region has a deep bench of private and parochial schools, if your budget allows it. Safety-wise, DC has had some rough years, but recent numbers show violent crime trending down from the spike during the pandemic years, with homicides and robberies both falling compared with the worst recent period. It is still a big city. There are neighborhoods that feel incredibly safe and walkable, and others where you will want to be more careful and plugged into local news. If you live here, you know the city feels different block by block. Healthcare access, on the other hand, is a real strength. DC is packed with major hospitals, including MedStar Washington Hospital Center, MedStar Georgetown University Hospital, George Washington University Hospital, Howard University Hospital, Children's National Hospital, and the new Cedar Hill Regional Medical Center in Southeast. Those systems give you top-level care in cardiology, cancer, trauma, pediatrics, and more, often within a short drive or metro ride. Of course, great care is not cheap. National data shows that employer health plan premiums and out-of-pocket costs keep rising, and DC's own per-person health spending sits well above the national average. So a smart move if you are coming here for a government or consulting job is to really read that benefits packet. Look for strong employer contributions to health insurance, solid retirement matches, and maybe even transit benefits, because those perks are worth real money every single month in DC. So when does $100,000 in Washington, DC actually feel like $100,000? It feels like real money when you pair it with intentional choices, like living near a metro line instead of owning 2 cars, picking a neighborhood that fits your budget instead of your ego, and actually automating savings as soon as your paycheck hits. It feels tight when lifestyle creep kicks in, when every happy hour is downtown, every lunch is eaten out, and you convince yourself that a luxury building with every amenity is just normal here. So here is that rule of thumb I promised you. In DC, do not just look at your gross salary. Ask yourself, after rent, after taxes, after healthcare, can I still save at least 20% of my take-home pay every single month? If the honest answer is yes, that job or that move probably works. If the answer is no, even a six-figure offer might not actually buy you the life you want here. Now I want to hear from you. Would you move to Washington, D.C. for a government job or a high-paying private role, knowing all of this? Drop the city you want to see next in the comments. And if you are comparing different offers or wondering where your money goes fastest, check out the next video in this series where we break down another major American city in the same way. See you there.